Let's jump right into this explainer. Today, we're unraveling the absolutely jarring, unsolved mystery of a man who seemingly just vanished into thin air. You know, we all like to think life is somewhat predictable, right? Especially when you've built a solid, anchored routine that's wonderfully mundane in the best way possible. Well, for a Texas lawyer named David Lewis, his straightforward life literally turned into one of the most baffling mysteries on record practically overnight.
To even begin wrapping our heads around why this case is so incredibly baffling, we have to talk about this impossible 1,600-mile gap. We're starting out in the Texas Panhandle, but by the end of this story, we end up impossibly far away out in the Pacific Northwest. I mean, think about that distance. That is a grueling 24-hour nonstop drive across multiple state lines. This massive geographical chasm between his everyday reality and his tragic end is the core puzzle we're trying to solve today.
And this contrast right here hits the nail on the head. On the left side, you've got a highly respected professional, a judge, family man, a true pillar of his community. But on the right, a tragic John Doe wearing camo fatigues, wandering a dark highway with zero ID. We aren't talking about some drifter who just fell off the grid here. The inexplicable gap between who David Lewis was and what ultimately happened to him out in the cold is just completely wild.
Let's back up a bit and look at his picture-perfect life, because you really need this context to understand just how impossible his disappearance seems. He was born in Borger, Texas in 1953. It's a small town where, honestly, your reputation is your absolute most valuable currency. And David's reputation? It was totally spotless.
Just look at these facts. There is absolutely nothing on paper to suggest a guy who's preparing to willingly walk away from everything he's built. Magna cum laude from Texas Tech in political science and law, married his wife Karen in 1982, had his daughter Lauren a year later. He was elected as a Moore County judge in his early 30s, an honor that only happens if a community implicitly trusts you. Throw in the fact that he was a Sunday school teacher, a Boy Scout district chairman, and just a deeply religious, reliable father. You have a man firmly, deeply rooted to his life.
But then, the script completely flips. It's Super Bowl weekend, late January 1993. His wife Karen and daughter Lauren are heading out to Dallas for a shopping trip. They don't see David before they leave, but they just assume he's going to park himself in front of the TV. His beloved Dallas Cowboys are playing in their first Super Bowl in 14 years. It was supposed to be the ultimate relaxing Sunday we all look forward to. Instead, we get this chaotic, erotic timeline over the next 4 days. Thursday, he leaves work claiming he's sick, but somehow pushes through to teach a night class until 10 p.m. That classroom is actually the last confirmed sighting of him alive. Friday, a church friend spots him rushing through the Amarillo airport, no luggage, head down, looking like he's late for a flight. Then, out of nowhere on Saturday, his red Ford Explorer reappears in his driveway in Dumas. And Sunday, an officer spots a guy matching David's description acting like a tourist, taking photos of the Potter County Courthouse, a building David had literally worked in for years. Make it make sense.
When his family gets home that weekend, they walk into a scene frozen in time that completely contradicts a planned escape. The Cowboys game is over, but the VCR is still recording. There's laundry in the wash, and get this, 2 freshly made, wrapped turkey sandwiches are just sitting on the kitchen counter. His wedding ring and watch left right there in plain sight. And eventually, his Explorer is found downtown with the keys, checkbook, and ID all tucked under the floor mat. Seriously, people running for their lives do not stop to make themselves turkey sandwiches.
If the physical clues at his house weren't confusing enough, investigators started digging into his finances and unearthed the digital paper trail that practically defies logic. It's a series of movements that just don't fit together at all.
Keep in mind, this is 1993. Airports didn't require an ID at the gate, so we don't even know for sure if David actually used these tickets. But check out this sequence. Saturday, a mysterious $5,000 lands in his bank account from an unknown source. Sunday, a plane ticket is purchased in his name from Dallas to Amarillo. Monday, a Dallas cab driver comes forward, recalling picking up a super anxious man matching David's description who paid his fare from a thick wad of $100 bills. And that same day, a second flight is booked in his name, this time flying from Los Angeles to Dallas. What is going on here?
All right, let's pivot 1,600 miles away to rural Washington state. While all these weird breadcrumbs are dropping in Texas, and the police are eventually assuming he just walked away, an entirely disconnected tragedy is unfolding on the exact same Monday night. His wife reported him missing. On a pitch-black agricultural road near Moxie, Washington, a motorist spots a man wandering completely disoriented down the center line of the highway. He's wearing unfamiliar military-style camo fatigues and work boots, clothes his wife had never seen him own. He has zero ID, no wallet, no cards on him, and before anyone can get him to safety, he's struck and killed by a hit-and-run driver in a Camaro. The car speeds off, never to be found. Now, it's terrifying to think about this today, right? In an era where our digital footprints track our every move. But in 1993, missing persons databases across states simply did not talk to each other. So a report filed in Texas could sit completely isolated for a decade, while matching unidentified remains sat totally disconnected in a Washington filing cabinet. The infrastructure just wasn't there, leaving David's family completely in the dark for 11 long years.
It took a massive stroke of luck to finally bridge that gap. In 2003, Washington detective Pat Ditter, who was just bothered by this cold case, reads an article about missing persons. He decides to literally Google his John Doe's physical stats. That search leads him straight to David Lewis's page on the Doe network. The only catch? David constantly wore thick glasses, and the John Doe didn't have any. But when Ditter pulls the preserved camo clothing from the evidence room, he finds those thick glasses folded up deep in a pocket. By October 2004, a DNA test with David's mom proves with 99.91% certainty that the John Doe was, in fact, David Glenn Lewis.
You would think identifying him would bring closure, but it actually shattered the entire investigation. It cracked open entirely new, completely impossible questions. We know who he is, and we know he's dead. But how in the world did he travel 1,600 miles with no confirmed flight records? And why on earth was he wandering a dark Washington highway in camo gear, without the glasses he desperately needed to see?
Naturally, the police had a theory: voluntary disappearance. They figured the mounting pressures of his life caused David to simply snap and orchestrate his own exit. They pointed to the plane tickets, that $5,000 deposit, and the wad of cash in Dallas. And honestly, he was under intense pressure. He'd recently lost a judicial election, his private practice was struggling, and he was named as a defendant in a massive $3 million civil lawsuit against his old firm.
But wait, the lawsuit theory holds a specific, much darker twist. See, a wealthy former client had sued David's old law firm, and every single other attorney had already given their sworn testimony. David was the very last defendant scheduled to be deposed, and he fully planned to testify truthfully against his former colleagues. And right when he vanishes, his case files, along with all his crucial notes, completely vanish right along with him, never to be seen again.
And then there's this chilling quote, "My life is in danger." Shortly before he disappeared, David looked his wife Karen right in the eye and uttered those exact words. For 30 years, Karen has never changed her story. Her husband was a good man who was excited for his daughter's birthday. This warning really anchors a theory of foul play, supported by the fact that he'd actually received prior death threats during his time on the bench, including one from a client connected to a convicted murderer.
If he wasn't murdered and he didn't run away voluntarily, there is a third medical possibility: dissociative fugue. Under extreme stress, the human brain can essentially short-circuit, causing a person to entirely lose their identity and memory. This rare psychiatric condition results in unexpected travel with absolutely zero logical plan. Honestly, it perfectly explains a disoriented man wandering a dark highway without the glasses he needed to see.
But here is the really frustrating part. As we lay it out here, you can see that every single theory hits a massive brick wall. If he was running away voluntarily, why make sandwiches, set the VCR, and leave his wedding ring? If he was abducted to silence him for the deposition, why would kidnappers let him freely take a taxi in Dallas and pay in hundreds? And if his mind broke and he entered a medical fugue state, who deposited that $5,000 and who was driving the hit-and-run Camaro? None of the boxes cleanly fit the facts.
I mean, seriously, if you're running for your life, why make a sandwich? If your mind broke, who was behind the wheel of that fleeing Camaro? How a respected Texas judge ended up as a John Doe in camouflage, thousands of miles away, remains a haunting enigma. Some puzzles leave us with missing pieces, but this one, it leaves us with pieces from an entirely different puzzle. Will we ever truly know what happened on that dark Washington highway? Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Stay curious, and I'll see you next time.